What's up everybody? On today's video, we're going to be looking at footage from the Florida Classic weekend in Orlando, Florida. So this will be a great video so you guys can see Orlando, Florida during one of the largest events in the city. The Florida Classic is a football game and it is the largest African American gathering in the state of Florida. It's an awesome time to be in the city of Orlando where food trucks as well as car shows and the football game to make it one of the funnest weekends in Orlando. Police presence was very strong throughout the entire city, which means that it was a very safe event to be at. So I hope you guys enjoy this GoPro dash cam footage of the Florida Classic from the perspective of the front of my pickup truck driving through the city of Orlando and just feeling out the vibes throughout the city. When you are in Orlando, make sure you try some Puerto Rican food. There are now 1 million Puerto Ricans in Florida, and Orlando is the largest community. So while you're in Orlando, hit up some Puerto Rican food and I guarantee you won't regret it. Alright guys, so let's go for a drive through the streets of Orlando. We arrived on Friday and the Florida Classic weekend hadn't quite started, so it was still kind of empty. So we still drove through Colonial, which is Highway 50, goes east to west throughout the entire city of Orlando. And this is the main street where a lot of the car shows happen. So we're going to take a drive through here on Friday and not really much happens, but it's the start of the Florida Classic weekend. Let's take a drive and see what it looked like on Friday. And if you want to do something different, there is a Chinatown. It's not a huge Chinatown, but there's a small Chinatown right off of Colonial in West Orlando. This area is known as Pine Hills, but everybody calls it Crime Hills because it is, in fact, the most crime-ridden section of Orlando, Florida, despite the fact it does kind of host this event to some degree. And it is having a lot of interesting businesses that are known throughout the city, like the Magic Mall, Chinatown. Nonetheless, this area is still known as Crime Hills because it's definitely one of the most crime-ridden areas of the city of Orlando. Alright, so this is the iconic Magic Mall of Orlando on Colonial. It was $40 for parking inside of the event center here, which is basically a parking lot, to be honest. And there is no audio because all the sound systems were blaring. Now, I decided not to go back to the Magic Mall for day 2, which would have been my Saturday. And I actually hung out around the center of the city, and it was actually a much better idea since all the other YouTubers went to Magic Mall, and there's probably more footage of the same exact thing throughout like 50 different channels. And I realized right off the bat when I got to Orlando that there was a lot of content creators that were going to cover this event, so I wanted to cover it from kind of a different perspective, different camera angles, and just different parts of the city. But nonetheless, on Friday I did hit up Magic Mall, which was pretty cool, except for the fact that the loud sound systems were so insanely loud that you could not even think. And I kid you not, these were some of the most insanely loud sound systems I have ever heard. So with the idea of not covering the event like everybody else, we actually skipped out on the weekend here at Magic Mall. So on Saturday, we actually hung out between 50, which is Colonial, and Orange Blossom Trail, kind of closer to downtown Orlando. And we got some pretty neat footage of all the cars passing without having to get caught in the traffic gridlock that would have been Highway 50 during the event. I did not know the city of Orlando had so much police. The amount of police presence was really incredible to even think that a city has that many police cars. But if you think about it, Orlando hosts a lot of large events throughout the year, so it only makes sense that they would have a massive police force. We actually did park at this Wawa gas station for the vast majority of the day, so we decided it would only be right for us to fill up our gas tank since we parked here all day. Earlier in the day, there was actually a huge crowd at this Wawa. It was actually so large. There was confrontations between the law enforcement and the police officers, with the people that were hanging out telling them, hey, you guys just can't hang out here. If you're not buying gas, you got to keep it moving. And later on in the day, the crowds did move elsewhere. But there was a moment throughout the day where this gas station was kind of really chaotic and the occupancy was way too high. So with the camera back on the front of the truck, we go for a ride through Orlando at night, once again on our way out of town. And I will notice this is a great event for small businesses. I noticed there was a lot of food trucks. There's people that were doing mobile car washing. I mean, people really capitalized very well on this event to make a crap load of money. The smell of herbal essence was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. To be honest, I've actually been to events that are worse, and that's not something I personally enjoy, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. In fact, downtown Sarasota on a regular weekend was worse, which that caught me by surprise. I really thought this event would have a lot of herbal essence. I personally do not enjoy that. Now, I don't know if later on in the night it got worse in other areas, but we decided to leave early. It's just my experience that these events can be nice during the day, but later on at night, they tend to kind of go in a different direction. So right before it got dark, we decided to leave. And that's one thing that I've learned over the years. If you really care about your safety, just kind of pack it up early. You can have a lot of great fun, a lot of events early in the evening, but once it gets later into the night, it always just seems to go downhill. And if you watch the news for all the horrible things that happen, a vast majority of that stuff always goes down really late at night. And as we know, based off the news, Orlando's had a very difficult time in the past with safety. Some bad things have happened in Orlando, and that's probably why there's so much security. And it's really sad that it has to be that way. So now we're heading out of Orlando. Traffic was gridlocked throughout most of the city, and this would just give you guys an opportunity to see what the city of Orlando looks like during one of these massive events. If you pay close attention, you'll see there's businesses packed, cars everywhere, lots of really tuned up or pimped out cars. It was a really neat experience. To me, it was like seeing a rolling car show or art gallery on wheels. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was so cool to see so many cars that people took so much time to make them look unique. I have really never experienced anything like this. It was quite an awesome experience. And at least in the areas that we were hanging out in, I didn't see anything really get out of control. But it's a large city, and I'm sure in some places crap could have got wild. But again, we left pretty early, so it didn't really affect me. The city of Orlando is an interesting place because you have moments where the city almost feels like any other southern town, especially the downtown. It's a very simple downtown. There's a lot in the Orlando area, but the downtown of Orlando is kind of really small town and laid back for being just a large metropolitan area. And there's times where you go to Orlando and it's completely dead. And then there's other times you go to in Orlando and it looks like what it looked like on today's video. So this intersection was actually pretty interesting. I'm going to go ahead and delete the audio because we don't want to get a copyright strike because they're blasting music. But it's like this throughout the entire city of Orlando. It's just little corners where people hang out and a lot of action happens. And this corner was definitely one of the most interesting spots that I saw driving through the city. So if you've never been to Orlando, Florida for an event, the timing of the year makes a huge difference because there's times of the year where it's completely dead. And if you do go to Orlando and there is a large event going on and you weren't counting on it, traffic in the entire city will just come to a complete stop like it did here. So just make sure you kind of understand when you visit Orlando what events are taking place and how big those events are. Because if you're caught up in an event that you're not interested in and traffic gets to be like this, you probably won't have a good time. Traveling across the United States through many cities, a lot of times you don't know what's going on in places. I remember being stuck in downtown Indianapolis for like literally an hour and 40 minutes. I guess there was some type of football game and whatever was going on took up all the road space available. And that's one thing you definitely want to look into when you travel. Are there any large events going on that are irrelevant to the reason why you're visiting that city? In the case of Orlando, I knew this event was taking place and it was actually the reason I went there. But I have been in cities where there's a large event going on and I wasn't aware of it, like what happened to me in Indianapolis, where I drove into downtown during a large event and it really just about ruined our entire day there. First time I visited Key West, Florida was during a festival that they have down there. And let me tell you, it's not the type of festival I'm into, and it forever scarred my opinion of the city of Key West. And I thought that was just a normal day in Key West. Turns out there was actually an event going on. I've gone back to Key West now, and I like it now a little bit more than I did the first time when I went there, not knowing that this event was taking place. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean.